April 12, 1861, 4:30 in the morning. Confederate artillery batteries surrounding Charleston Harbor open fire in the darkness. The iron shells slamming into the brick walls of the federal fort come from American guns. The nation's own flag is under fire from its own people. In Washington, D.C., the man inheriting this collapse has held office for exactly 6 weeks. The survival of the United States now rests with a commander-in-chief who has zero military experience and has never overseen a national executive office. Abraham Lincoln won the 1860 election with only 40% of the popular vote. He is a regional president, elected without the support of a single Southern state. As he stands on the inauguration platform, the massive, unyielding stone columns of the Capitol emphasize his isolation. He is one man standing against a systemic fracture. The central mystery of the Civil War is how this unknown attorney, raised in absolute deprivation, found the internal strength to hold the Union together. Lincoln's childhood in Kentucky was defined by the freezing, dirt floor reality of a family that owned nothing. Life on the frontier was a struggle for basic survival. Food was scarce, disease was constant, and formal schooling was a luxury that totaled less than 1 year of his entire life. Standing 6'4" and exceptionally thin, he spent his adolescence in constant physical labor, swinging a heavy axe to clear timber and split rails. When the physical work ended, he turned to the rare books he could find, reading by the dim light of the fireplace and memorizing entire passages while his family slept. These years spent without teachers or resources established a habit of self-reliance. Without mentors or a safety net to guide him, he learned to generate his own momentum. At 19, while working as a riverboatman in New Orleans, he stood in the street and watched human beings traded as property. The sight remained a fixed moral reference point for the rest of his life. He taught himself the law and began riding the Illinois circuit on horseback, arguing cases in small-town courtrooms and gaining a reputation for precision and honesty. He married into a wealthy family in 1842, but his domestic life with Mary Todd was defined by severe turbulence and the deaths of 3 of their 4 sons. In 1858, he challenged the celebrated Senator Stephen A. Douglas, using the public stage to argue against the expansion of slavery. His logical dismantling of pro-slavery arguments on those wooden platforms elevated an unknown circuit lawyer to the head of a new national coalition. Because the Democratic Party split along regional lines in 1860, Lincoln secured the White House with less than half the popular vote. His victory triggered a territorial break. Southern states immediately seceded, geographically severing themselves from the Union. These states formed a new government with a constitution that explicitly protected the ownership of human beings, and they began raising a military to defend it. By the time Lincoln stepped onto the inaugural platform, the geographical fracture had already made military conflict a mathematical certainty. The early war effort was a catastrophe. A humiliating defeat at First Bull Run in 1861 ended the expectation that the rebellion would be suppressed in a single season. Casualties mounted at a scale the country had never seen. In Washington, makeshift medical wards filled with rows of broken men as the lists of the dead grew longer every week. The pressure took a visible toll. Lincoln worked 18-hour days, his face turning gray and gaunt under the weight of mounting failures in the field. Lincoln eventually realized that the enormous loss of life demanded a cause more absolute than the mere preservation of federal borders. To justify the ongoing bloodshed, he shifted his focus from the map to the institution of slavery itself. He drafted the Emancipation Proclamation as a wartime measure, using his executive authority to strip the Confederacy of its workforce and its economic foundation. By applying his signature to this document, Lincoln committed the federal government to a new path. Every Union advance was now an act of liberation. News of the proclamation spread through the South, prompting enslaved people to flee toward Union lines and leading 180,000 black soldiers to enlist in the Federal Army. Their presence gave the Union Army a new identity. It was now a liberation force fighting for the end of human bondage in America. But it is only 1863. the Confederate armies are still in the field, and the violence is continuing to escalate across the continent.
Lincoln has committed the nation to freedom, but he knows the most violent and bloodiest chapters of the war are still ahead of him.
July 1863, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. For 3 days, 90,000 Union soldiers clash with 75,000 Confederates. Artillery fire tears across the hillside, shredding the lines as infantrymen charge blindly through thick smoke and deep mud. This photograph captures the aftermath of the deadliest battle ever fought on American soil. Over 3 days, 51,000 men are killed or wounded. Behind the lines, hospital tents stretch for miles. Surgeons work 18-hour shifts, operating without anesthesia, while thousands succumb in the night to infection and shock. When the firing finally stops, Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia begins a long retreat back into Southern territory. The Confederacy's most lethal fighting force will never cross into the North again. The immediate threat to the United States government is broken. The conflict shifts. It becomes a relentless, grinding war of attrition, a terrible mathematical certainty that the larger, better-supplied Union Army is positioned to win. 4 months later, thousands gather to dedicate a cemetery at the battlefield. The main speaker, Edward Everett, delivers a 2-hour oration detailing the military maneuvers. Then Abraham Lincoln stands up. He speaks for exactly 2 minutes, delivering a short address that many in the press immediately dismiss as completely inadequate. Lincoln characterizes the conflict as a survival test for democracy itself. He frames the massive bloodshed at Gettysburg as the price paid to prove that a nation built on human equality can survive. He points out that no speech can consecrate the ground. The soldiers who died there have already done that. Instead, he issues a directive. He tells the crowd that the living must dedicate themselves to the unfinished work left behind. With 272 words, he places the weight of the dead squarely on the shoulders of the survivors. The only acceptable payment for the slaughter is what he calls a new birth of freedom. As 1864 begins, the Union Army pushes aggressively into the South. The fighting is relentless. Troops march through the Confederacy, leaving behind a scarred, blackened landscape of burned farms and shattered infrastructure. Back in Washington, the escalating violence drains the president. The national death toll climbs toward an eventual total of 620,000 Americans. Lincoln moves slower. His face turns gaunt, his skin pale, his eyes hollowed out by the constant stream of casualty reports. The Northern public is exhausted. Support for the fighting plummets. By August, Lincoln sits at his desk and drafts a private memo to his cabinet. He plainly states his expectation that he will be voted out of office in the November election. Refusing to negotiate a compromise that would leave slavery intact means allowing the bloodshed to continue. The moral demand to see the war through is systematically destroying the physical geography of the South and breaking the man commanding the armies. The tide turns only when the Union generals find their lethal competence. Ulysses S. Grant takes over all Union forces, matching Southern aggression blow for blow, while William Tecumseh Sherman drives his forces straight through the heart of Georgia. These battlefield victories rescue Lincoln's presidency. In November 1864, he wins re-election in a decisive landslide. Crucially, 85% of the active military vote goes to Lincoln. The men doing the dying choose to finish the job. When Lincoln is sworn in for his second term, he delivers a harsh truth to the exhausted nation. He does not solely blame the Confederacy for the conflict. He points directly at the institution of slavery itself, stating that the wealth it generated implicated the North as much as the South. He insists that the war is a divine punishment for the sin of human bondage. Yet, he closes his address with a plea for mercy. He asks the public to move forward with malice toward none, with charity for all. A few weeks later, in April 1865, Robert E. Lee formally surrenders. After 4 agonizing years of combat, the fighting stops. Lincoln has successfully wielded the vast executive power required to dismantle slavery and force the fractured states back together. He is finally ready to rebuild. On April 14th, 5 days after the Confederate surrender, Lincoln's wife Mary convinces him to take an evening off. The couple attends a play at Ford's Theater in Washington. He is depleted, looking for a rare hour of simple distraction. During the third act, an actor and Confederate sympathizer named John Wilkes Booth slips quietly into the presidential box. He steps up behind the president, raises a small pistol to the back of Lincoln's head, and fires once. The theater erupts into screaming panic. Soldiers and doctors carry the unconscious president across the street to a boarding house, laying him on a small bed. The bullet has severely damaged his brain. At 7:22 the next morning, Abraham Lincoln stops breathing. The president, who had spent 4 years navigating the country through its bloodiest internal collapse, is struck down just days after the firing stopped. His death leaves the battered country without its primary architect, at the exact moment Reconstruction was meant to begin. This document shows the text of the 13th Amendment. Ratified 8 months after Lincoln's murder, it serves as the constitutional fulfillment of his Emancipation Proclamation. With these signatures, the legal ownership of human beings is permanently outlawed. 4 million people are free. Lincoln's record is marked by severe miscalculations. He repeatedly trusted incompetent military commanders and made poor strategic choices early in the war that extended the conflict. The sheer number of casualties under his direct authority is staggering. He also dies before he can implement his plans for peace. He never lives to witness the complete collapse of his Reconstruction policies, the broken promises to Black Americans, or the brutal century of Jim Crow oppression that follows. Today, he rests beneath this towering obelisk in Springfield, Illinois. Hundreds of thousands of people travel here every year. They leave notes and coins on the grave of a self-taught lawyer who was born in a dirt floor cabin. He was a flawed leader who oversaw immense destruction. By directing the Union's military power and political will toward the total abolition of slavery, he anchored the American legal system to the principle that all men are created equal.